Tonight on Bridge City News, a letter from emergency room doctors in our province expressing healthcare concerns has been sent to Alberta Premier Jason Kenney. The Alberta government released its report on the impact of our province's supervised consumption sites. And a professional bull riding event is taking place in our city. We caught up with one of the bull riders, Zane Lambert.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Robbins.
Good evening. Thanks so much for joining us. A system of chaos. That is the comment from the Alberta Associate Minister of Mental Health and Addictions, Jason Lewan, who was speaking about the government's findings in its report on our province's supervised consumption sites. Lewan says the SCS is chaos for the addicts and for the communities around the site. Alberta Premier Jason Kenney appointed an 8-person review panel last summer to look at the social and economic effects of the sites, including crime and safety. The province's members of the panel gathered feedback during the past 8 months. The committee listened to more than 19,000 Albertans about the impacts of the SCS on homes, businesses, and neighborhoods. Here's some of the key findings of the report. There was increased needle debris and deteriorating public safety around the sites. Death rates in the vicinity of the sites continue to increase, along with province-wide opioid deaths. Opioid-related calls for emergency medical services increased. People felt less safe in the area surrounding the SCS. There's a lack of focus on treatment resources and a substantial increase in the use of non-opioid substance abuse, including meth, leading to aggressive behavior endangering public safety. Lethbridge Mayor Chris Spearman spoke on the provincial panel's review of the supervised consumption site earlier today.
Is the number one issue that needs to be resolved, and we need to continue to make progress, and we can't do it alone as the City of Lethbridge. We're responsible for one of the 4 pillars, and that's the enforcement. That we need to make sure that that the other 3 pillars are being addressed, and I think what I'm hearing the province say is exactly the same thing. This can't be a 1-pillar approach. Or a 2-pillar approach. It has to be a wholesome approach to address the issues.
The province says over the next few months it will consider changes to the supervised consumption services and other addiction treatment and recovery resources on a city-by-city basis. Doctors in emergency rooms in both Lethbridge and Medicine Hat have written a letter to Premier Jason Kenney expressing some healthcare concerns. Doctors say changes by the UCP to our healthcare system could swamp emergency rooms and negatively impact patient care in our region. A letter signed by 22 emergency room physicians says the changes will come into effect April 1st are poorly considered. Some of the concerns expressed in the letter include that the reduction of complex care modifiers will make it difficult for family medical clinics to remain financially viable. Also, that daily visit caps imposed by the government on physicians will shorten or eliminate evening walk-in clinics. There are 2 new cases of the coronavirus in Ontario and a presumptive case in Quebec. The latest cases in Ontario are a woman who returned to Kitchener from Italy and a man who returned to Toronto from Iran. If the Quebec case confirms, that would bring the total number of cases in Canada to 37. The federal government issued an alert earlier today warning against all travel to Iran. Global Affairs Canada says the travel restrictions imposed to control the spread of COVID-19 are making it difficult to leave Iran. Ottawa is also warning against any non-essential travel to China and is urging Canadians to be cautious about traveling to Japan. BC's latest coronavirus case is a Vancouver area woman in her 80s who recently traveled to India and Hong Kong. This is BC's 13th case. The province's health officer, Dr. Bonnie Henry, says the woman, who's in her 80s, is in critical condition.
Unfortunately, she's had quite a severe illness, and she is currently in critical condition in isolation in the ICU at Vancouver General Hospital. So the hospital, of course, has been preparing for this and has taken all precautions to ensure that everybody in the hospital, the healthcare workers, the visitors, the other patients, are safe and are being protected and providing her the care that she needs at this critical time.
Our province's Chief Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Dina Hinshaw, says even though Alberta has no confirmed cases of the coronavirus, we're still preparing for it. In a statement released earlier today, Dr. Hinshaw says, "We are committed to working with all of our health partners to ensure processes and well-trained teams are in place to both protect the public and respond if COVID-19 should arrive in our province. We will take whatever steps are needed to ensure Alberta's health system is prepared." Ottawa is mulling over potential financial help to ease the burden of the coronavirus on businesses after its first cabinet meeting on the subject. Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland says the global economy is already feeling the impact, and it is beginning in Canada as well.
We are here today to assure Canadians that the government is very aware of the broad economic, and I would even say potentially social impact of coronavirus. And that's one reason that the Prime Minister has convened this Cabinet Committee, to be looking very closely at what that impact may be. And you're quite right that there is potentially the macroeconomic impact, but there are also sort of small microeconomic impacts on people's personal lives. So we are looking at all of that.
Meanwhile, south of the border, U.S. Vice President Mike Pence, who is coordinating his government's response to the coronavirus, says the task force they have assembled is pushing to expand testing.
As I stand before you today, we have more than 100 coronavirus cases in the United States. That is counting domestic cases and cases of coronavirus of Americans that were returned from China or the Diamond Princess. I'm pleased to report that most of those who contracted coronavirus within our care are continuing to recover. But sadly, we received word today that another American has passed away, and their family has our deepest condolences. To be clear, if you are a healthy American, the risk of contracting the coronavirus remains low.
Health Canada is moving forward with a ban on the deadly pesticide strychnine, which is used to kill gophers. Officials say the pesticide can hurt other animals, including species at risk, including the swift fox or burrowing owl. The governments of Alberta and Saskatchewan have expressed concerns about a ban. The Canadian Cattlemen's Association and the Saskatchewan Association of Rural Municipalities are opposed to it. Gophers, which burrow underground, have been known to damage crops, and their burrows can injure livestock. The University of Lethbridge appointed a new manager of Indigenous Student Services. Lindy Shade brings plenty of experience to her new role as manager of Indigenous Student Services at the Gathering Place, and she's eager to help students succeed and build cross-cultural connections.
One of the initiatives I'd really like to look forward to is really around expanding our services. As you can understand, the Gaiskini Gathering Place is separate from the university. It's quite isolated. So what we would like to do is to bring the center more towards U-Haul in the university so that we're more accessible to our Indigenous students. So one of the goals is to build a cross-cultural paradigm with our Indigenous and non-Indigenous students. So in order to learn more about our culture, and to expand services around support, mental health, ensuring that all of our Indigenous students are a success here at the University of Lethbridge.
In her role as manager of Indigenous Student Services, Shade's main focus will be on the mental health of students and having elders available for students when needed. It's time for construction again. Teams come together from various industries to build unique structures entirely made out of canned food. The food will be donated to Interfaith Food Bank Society of Lethbridge, Lethbridge Food Bank, and Lethbridge College Food Bank to help stock the shelves and assist people in need in and around our city.
There are 7 teams this year, and there are a variety of different teams. We have some schools, we have different businesses, organizations. Save On Foods has a team. There are various individuals that want to participate in the competition and give back in this way.
At the Centre Village Mall today, they're constructing the different sculptures. In the last several years, we've been participating in an event called Construction, and it's designed to raise funds for the less fortunate here in the city. And so the proceeds for all of these sculptures that you see are all made out of cans and canned goods, and this will all be food that will be donated to the 3 food banks, the Lethbridge Food Bank, the Interfaith Food Bank, and the Lethbridge College Student Association Food Bank.
It is for a good cause. It's all going to the local food bank, and I enjoy building things as an engineer. That's what we like to do. We are building an Etch-a-Sketch, and it's about 6 feet tall and about 2,000 cans.
Last year's event raised over 14,000 pounds of food, which translates to $38,700 worth of support. The problem of homelessness for women in Lethbridge is a reality. A Lethbridge woman is doing her part to help those in need by providing handbags filled with supplies to help some of our city's homeless.
Our main focus for this initiative is hygiene, because hygiene contributes to someone's health so profoundly. And we want to prevent infection and, obviously help people maintain a sense of dignity while they're in a very difficult situation. So we have menstrual hygiene products, wet wipes, soap, toothpaste, deodorant, shampoo, and we're tossing in a few snacks, clean socks.
If you want to donate cash or a handbag to the Sisterhood Handbag Project, you can visit Purple Hippo Boutique, Institution Tattoo, or Say Yes Clothing. The search for Marshall Iwasa continues. The Alberta man went missing November 17th in Lethbridge. Now, that's the last time his mother saw him. The family has not given up hope in finding him. BCN's Jeanette Rocher recently spoke with another family member, Cassie Iwasa, who says they are still hopeful that more clues will turn up to help police in their efforts.
We didn't find one piece of security footage, which is so insane in this day and age. Like I can't believe that he made it there or the truck made it there without being seen. So if we could just find one piece of footage that showed even him driving there, like was it even him that took the truck there? Was he alone? Yeah. Those are huge questions that we don't have the answers to.
Catch the full interview with Cassie Iwasa describing the painful journey her family has been through. That's coming up in the latter half of our show. Bull riding is an extreme sport that requires focus and determination to be able to stay on the bull. But for the professional bull rider Zane Lambert, that's what he lives for.
When I was a young kid, I seen it on TV, and as well as I went to a bull riding event in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Cody Snyder Bull Bust, and met some of the cowboys and fell in love with it. Said, "Dad, that's what I want to do." And from there, we went home, and my brothers and sisters were rodeoing and roping and stuff, and I was crawling on the roping cattle, and just wanted to do it. So my dad took me to a bull riding school, and we've been chasing the circuit ever since. So you see cowboys, putting it all on the line, trying their butts off, and going against a big animal that's trying to kick you on the ground and make you go home with no money for the day. So it's kind of cool to see that aspect, us competing, as well as the show itself is actually pretty cool.
Lambert will be competing in Lethbridge at the 2020 Professional Bull Riding Monster Energy Tour. The first night of the action starts tomorrow night at the NMAC Centre. The Friends of the Galt is inviting the community to dance the night away at the Friends Winter Barn Dance on Saturday. The Winter Barn Dance is a family-friendly event to eat, drink, dance, and be merry.
First off, dancing. A lot of dancing happening. I know when we ran this last year, I don't think anybody really sat down for a long period of time. So a lot of dancing happening and great music, fantastic music. The band, the Kunkel's do a great job with their band. And they come in, they play all the favorites, even some top 40, a lot of country, a lot of those dances that you would expect to have at a barn dance that maybe some people grew up with 30, 40 years ago, that will be here being played. Great fundraiser for the Galt Museum and also for the Friends of the Galt.
The Friends Winter Barn Dance will be held at the Galt Museum and Archives Saturday night from 7 to 11 p.m. Tickets for this event are available at the Galt Museum store or online at galtmuseum.com. A tornado that tore through a Tennessee community early Tuesday was over in seconds. In the aftermath, families stumbled through debris in the rain and darkness to a nearby house that was still standing.
In 32 years, this is the absolute worst I've ever seen. You hear people say it was over in a second. You don't think about that. Literally, it was 10 seconds, and it was gone. I walked outside to kind of see what the debris looked like. I thought maybe we'd have some trees down, and just looked around, and there were no houses left.
We ended up with a house full of muddy people in their pajamas, just terrified.
We became the collection point because we were the only house standing.
One of the little girls, it was the ones next door, she said, "I don't want to leave the house that stayed up." And I was like, that's why our house stayed up, because they needed a place to go.
We're friends with most everybody in the neighborhood, and so all of the lives that have been lost, it's unbelievable, it's unfathomable. It hurts. It was difficult to sleep last night.
A shop selling U.S. President Donald Trump-themed merchandise in a strip mall in Philadelphia has emerged as a magnet for the president's backers. It is also a reflection of Pennsylvania's status as a political background this year.
People were coming to the mall just to come see our store. So we needed a bigger space to have more merchandise and more items for sale, and everybody loves Trump items.
How many people a day do you have coming through, do you think?
We've had The slowest day we had was about 350, but we've had 600 people in here in one day.
Well, this is my second trip here just to get stuff that's specifically geared towards promoting Donald Trump. I get T-shirts and a couple keychains and stuff like that. Simple stuff. Something that I can give out to somebody if they're sitting on the fence, you know. It's a conversation starter. If you see how busy this place is, and I see all kinds of people. I see old people, young people. I see people that are still working real hard. I see retired people. So it shows you not only the amount of demand that there is for this stuff, but also it shows you the spectrum of people that are buying the stuff, it's everybody. It's not just one focus group.
Trump certainly has his supporters, doesn't he? Fortunately, warmer temperatures are on the way. It was a little chilly today, and complete weather details are coming up. We had lots of sunshine today again and fairly mild. Tonight, a few clouds developing with a low near 4 degrees. Tomorrow, mainly sunny with a high expected near 14. Saturday, a cold front moves in, bringing snow and a daytime high of only -5. Sunday, a mixture of sun and cloud and the mercury dropping to -6. The warmth should return on Monday. Expect sunny skies again and a high near 3 degrees. Tuesday, even warmer with a high of 10. Expect a mainly cloudy day on Wednesday with a high near 12. Looking at the almanac, the average high for this time of year is 4 degrees and an average low of -8. The highest temperature in the state was recorded in 1987 at 20 degrees, and the record low, a chilly -38 in 1947. Sunrise was at 7:05, sunset at 6:20. Looking at tomorrow's national forecast now, it should be mainly rainy with a high of 8 degrees in Victoria, rain and 8 as well for Vancouver. Calgary should have a mixture of sun and cloud and a high near 6. Expect light flurries and high of 0 in Edmonton. Sunshine and 11 is on tap for Regina tomorrow. Partly cloudy and 7 for Saskatoon. Mainly sunny and 0 for Winnipeg. Toronto should receive rain mixed with snow and a high of 2. Expect rain showers and a high of +1 for Ottawa. Montreal should also receive some light snow with rain and a high of only -1 tomorrow. Over in the Atlantic region, Fredericton, New Brunswick will have a mixture of sun and cloud and a high of 1. Sunshine at 3 degrees for Halifax, Nova Scotia. Mainly sunny as well and -3 for Charlottetown, PEI. And in St. John's, Newfoundland, it should be mainly cloudy and a high of -2 for tomorrow. The Supreme Court of Canada says it will not hear 5 challenges from environment and Indigenous groups from BC on the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion project. They argue the federal cabinet violated the Species at Risk Act when it approved the expansion a second time in June of last year. The groups believe the expansion project will harm the highly endangered southern resident killer whales. The 14 oil-producing countries of the OPEC cartel are calling for a deep production cut of 1.5 million barrels a day to support prices that are sagging due to the coronavirus. The proposal assumes that non-member allies such as Russia will agree to the cuts tomorrow, but analysts say that may not happen. The international benchmark for crude was trading for less than $46 a barrel today. That is down from $69 at the start of the year. The Alberta economy may not rebound as fast as most people would hope, especially if the price of oil remains low. Now that's according to our legislative reporter, Tyler Dawson. Tyler says if that's the case, then we could potentially see more cuts coming from the UCP government.
Basically, the gist of it being, if we don't get pipeline access, we don't get oil prices back up, if the economy doesn't start turning around, then there is the potential for further, they say spending restraint, of course, is how they're phrasing it. But, basically that means cuts. So you have this interesting scenario where if things don't get better, there might be more cuts. And they're also hoping for perhaps these optimistic changes in the economy over the next couple of years.
Catch the full interview with Tyler Dawson, the Alberta correspondent with the National Post, coming up after business news. Calgary-based energy company Canadian Natural Resources is raising its dividend by a nickel to 42.5 cents per share. It earned $579 million in the last quarter. That was up from a loss of $776 million in the same quarter a year earlier. Production in the quarter increased to just over 1.1 million barrels of oil equivalent per day. The company reports its acquisition of primary heavy crude oil assets from Devon, Canada, offset the impact of the completion of a planned turnaround and a piping replacement at its Horizon project. Shares of Cineplex fell more than 7% in trading after a short seller suggested the stock market is underestimating the odds of the company's $2.8 billion purchase by Cineworld could fall apart. Analysts say Cineworld may try to modify the deal and see the price reduced. The company is concerned about the debt involved in the deal and says the new coronavirus is putting pressure on theater chains. An investor who sells a short stock makes money when the price of a share falls. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The markets took another coronavirus beating today. The TSX was down 225 points to 16,553. The Dow was down 969 points to 26,121. The S&P 500 was down 106 points to 3,023, and the Nasdaq was down 279 points to 8738. Oil was down 77 cents on the day to 46.01 per barrel. Natural gas was down 7 cents to $1.76. Gold was up 7 cents to $16.72.30 an ounce, and silver was up 3 cents to $17.47 an ounce. Wheat is at $224 per metric ton. Barley's also at $224. Canola's at $461, and corn is at $259 per metric ton. Live cattle were down $263 to $110.55. Feeder cattle were down $1.23 to $134.70, and lean hogs were up $1.08 to $65.48. The Canadian dollar was up slightly on the day to $74.59 US. Recapping one of our top stories this hour, doctors in emergency rooms in both Lethbridge and Medicine Hat have written a letter to Premier Jason Kenney expressing some healthcare concerns. Doctors say changes by the UCP to our healthcare system could swamp emergency rooms and negatively impact patient care in our region. A letter signed by 22 emergency room physicians says the changes could come into effect April 1st are poorly considered. Here's a look what's happening in and around your community.
Here's your Bridge City News community calendar. On Friday, March 6th, World Day of Prayer will be taking place at 2 p.m. at Southminster United Church and at 7 p.m. at the Coaldale Mennonite Church. All are welcome to attend. World Day of Prayer is an international interchurch event that will be celebrated in over 1,100 Canadian communities and in over 170 countries. The vision of this gathering is to restore hope to those who have been touched by injustice. So come join fellow believers in Christ as we lift up prayers of faith for our world. Come for a night of down-home fun to the Friends Winter Barn Dance on Saturday, March 7th, beginning at 7 p.m. at the Galt Museum and Archives. Proceeds will go towards educational programs at the Galt. Tickets are $30 for adults, $20 for youth ages 11 to 17, and children 10 and under are free. Purchase yours by visiting galtmuseum.com. Celebrate Recovery is a Christ-centered recovery program for any hurt, hang-up, and habit. This group meets Friday nights at Park Meadows Baptist Church. The evening begins at 7 p.m. with small group sessions at 8 p.m., followed by coffee and dessert at 9. For more information, visit celebraterecovery.ca. And that's your Bridge City News community calendar.
It's a case that has spanned across 2 provinces, but has come up with very little evidence or very little answers. I'm talking about the disappearance of Marshall Iwasa. Joining me now is Cassie Iwasa, who is married to Marshall's first cousin. Cassie, thank you so much for joining me today on this very touchy and very important topic of your, I guess it's your cousin through marriage, right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so first of all, here in Lethbridge in southern Alberta, Calgary, and into BC, especially here in Lethbridge, we all know what's happened with Marshall, that he was last seen on Sunday, November the 17th, and very little has come up since then. About a week later, his truck was found in British Columbia, burnt out, and nothing has really come up of Marshall since. But you're here to talk about the investigation and maybe put to rest some misconceptions about the case and just any new information that the public really isn't aware of. I know your family's done a really great job on the Find Marshall Iwasa Facebook page, and so it's been a really great source of information. Okay, so let's start by talking about Marshall. Who is he? What type of a guy is he? Would it be super out of character for him to just suddenly disappear?
We believe it would definitely be out of character for him to disappear. He's a very likable guy. He was born and raised in Lethbridge, went to high school here, has a lot of friends, a lot of close family members, and he's just an all-around really good person. He's quiet but fun, and he's a good guy.
Okay.
He is, yeah.
So he was last seen that you know of on Sunday, November 17th, right? Like Marshall was living in Calgary, but came to Lethbridge for the weekend or for the day. Why don't we go through that last day? Yeah.
Okay, so he was coming to Lethbridge to go to his storage unit on November 17th. Before he went to the storage unit, he stopped at his mom's house, and they had a quick conversation or a little visit, and then he went to the storage unit. I don't think he realized that between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m., the storage unit locks people out of the gate. So you need to put in a code to enter the yard, basically. So the gate will lift up and let you access the yard. And it was, he couldn't get in between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m.
So this is Sunday going into Monday.
Going into Monday.
Okay.
And he got there after 11. So we were able to see that he entered his code a few times throughout the night, and then finally getting in just after 6. And then he was in there for just over 2 hours, and then we seen that he left almost at 8:30.
Okay.
So on Monday, November 18th.
November 18th. And you know this because surveillance picked it up?
No, they could just tell when the code was used. So their surveillance was erased after 7 days, and by the time we figured out he was missing and we tried retracing his steps, the surveillance was gone.
Okay. Oh, talk about timing. Yeah. Okay, so do you know why he was in the storage room?
So he needed a box for a piece of his computer. So he built his own computer. He was a computer guy. That's what he was originally going to school for. And he needed to send a piece away because his computer was broken. So he was looking for something to do with his computer.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he was in there for 2 hours?
Yes.
Okay. And I guess that's normal. I don't know. I mean, especially if you haven't been back to your storage room in a long time and if it's really full.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was last there in August, so it's not like he was there all the time, but yeah, since then the storage unit has been searched and nothing is weird about it. Everything seems normal, everything is still there.
Yeah.
So.
And his mom knew he was heading there.
Right.
And then heading back to Calgary.
To Calgary, yeah.
Okay. So, any idea where he spent that night? From Sunday night to Monday morning?
Just by the looks of things, like we can see that he did try to enter the code a few times throughout the night. So it seems like he was just there.
He was just hanging out outside the storage unit
in his truck.
In his truck. Mm-hmm. Interesting. Okay, so you find out he was in and out. He had been gone by 8 in the morning or something?
Yeah, I think it was like 8:24 was the exact time the code was used to leave the yard.
Okay, and that would be Monday, November the 18th.
Yes.
And then what happens? Nobody hears from him again?
No, so we didn't know anything was wrong. We just assumed he would have been in Calgary, right? It's like we don't talk to him every day
Sure. Yeah.
So we didn't know anything happened until Paige got a call on November 26th from the BCRCMP saying that they believed Marshall's truck was found near Pemberton and was burnt. And the only reason they believed it was Marshall's truck was because they found his passport outside of the vehicle. Okay.
Now, my understanding is, I know there's been a lot of talk about, the passport, maybe that's what he went to storage for. Maybe that's why, he was trying to leave the country, but that's actually a misconception, isn't it?
Yeah, it wasn't that surprising to us that the passport was, it was surprising to us in a way that the passport was left there to identify the vehicle, but it wasn't that surprising that the passports, he had his expired passport and his valid passport were both outside. And Paige's Marshall's sister, said that when she was in his vehicle in August, he had both of his passports in the truck. And she even told him that you probably shouldn't leave your passports in your vehicle.
Right.
Yeah, but that's where he kept them.
Definitely.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
So what did the police tell you about the burnt truck and what was found there?
There was a lot of items found there that they believed were Marshall's. The police didn't tell us much about the truck. It was never investigated how it even started or Yeah. But they did search that area. They searched it for 5 days they had dogs out there, and they searched the area. They had helicopters looking for him, but we didn't get much information.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
what now? In one of the items that we heard from police was that other than passports, there was other ID. There was clothing possibly found, or a bag.
Yeah.
That belonged to Marshall as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was clothing, there was a toiletry bag, there was a laptop, there were smashed cell phones. Well, the smashed cell phones is what it was reported, but they were broken cell phones that he had just had in his glove box, and they hadn't been used in years. Okay. That was another big public misconception, I think, about the 3 cell phones, that something else would have been happening, but they were all, like, one of them I don't think was used since like 2005 or something.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay.
They weren't sketchy cell phones.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's just got old cell phones and an expired passport in his, I guess, a glove box or something?
Yeah, in his glove box.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And were there any other items found around the truck that maybe didn't belong to him?
We do think that there was items that didn't belong, for sure. We haven't actually been able to see the items. We've asked to, but we're not able to. And just to kind of confirm, and we don't know.
And it was
who's
described
there.
by police to you? Like,
right.
We found this, 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 and this. And you're like, oh, well, that doesn't sound right.
Right.
Okay. Are you able to talk about what that might be?
No.
You want to just kind of keep that?
Yes. There's certain things that they have asked us to not disclose still.
Yeah. They don't want to compromise any investigation, of course.
Right.
Understandable.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the other thing interesting is we found out that he had just paid off his truck too, right?
Yeah, in September.
Okay.
Yeah.
So obviously it's not like something he would do and torch his own truck if he wanted to just disappear.
That's where, yes, when we think about, we've covered every scenario and more, I feel like. But when we think about the truck, and if he were to disappear, like, he just paid it off in September. He had a 6-year lease that he just finished paying off in September. Like, he could have easily sold the truck. We would have never known he sold the truck until who knows when, and then took 20 grand and had cash.
Yeah.
He did not have fire insurance on the vehicle, so there was no point in him doing that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What was Marshall doing in Calgary? Like, he's from Lethbridge, but
Yes.
he was living in Calgary, so he had a place there.
Yes.
Okay.
He was living in a basement suite. He started going to school at SAIT in September 2018 for software development, and he finished 2 semesters there, and as far as we knew, he was still in school, but it wasn't until his disappearance that the police found that he did not enroll for the September 2019 semester.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, interesting. Do you know if he was working?
He was, we believe, doing some kind of computer internship. We were able to see, I don't even know what this program is called, but he had 800 hours of work on something. We haven't been able to even get into this to see what it was, but somehow someone was able to see that he had spent 800 hours working on something.
Wow. Do you know any people in Calgary that were connected with him? Any of his friends or anything like that?
No, that's kind of one piece of the puzzle that we're really missing, is who he would have met there. Like, he had a few friends in Calgary that he knew from Lethbridge that moved to Calgary, but as far as new people, we don't know.
Right.
But we did talk to his landlord, and his landlord lived upstairs. She owned the house, and Marshall was in the basement. She basically just said he was very quiet, very friendly, like they shared a laundry room, so she did know him. And she said there wasn't a lot of people coming and going or any besides Marshall.
Right. Yeah. Okay. And I guess one of the significant dates was like the December 1st rent.
Yes.
Right. You guys were kind of waiting to see, is he going to pay his rent?
For sure, because he always paid his rent on time. So we thought, well, maybe he's working somewhere, and maybe someone stole his truck and burnt it, and maybe he doesn't even know it's been torched, right? Like, because he did before he went back to school. I mean, he was 26, so he went back to school late. So he did work various oil jobs or whatever, right? So we thought that's where he could have been, but we knew he would have even sent an e-transfer or did something on the first, and the first came and gone, and yeah.
Now, have you been allowed to look at, like, did the police find his current cell phone?
No.
So that's missing.
His current cell phone, his current laptop, he did get a laptop at SAIT that is still missing.
Okay, so he's got a laptop missing, his current phone is missing.
Right.
Have you been able to talk to whoever his mobility provider is? Or is that like...
So he he didn't use his cell phone at all. I don't know the exact dates, but in November sometime, but before his disappearance.
Okay, so they were able to at least let you guys know that.
Yeah.
What a mystery this has been. Now, one of the reasons I really wanted to talk about this is because we broadcast nationally, coast to coast, and I don't know how much coverage this is getting beyond BC and Alberta. Hopefully it's reached, far and wide, but I don't know. Do you have any idea how far this has kind of stretched?
I definitely know it's mostly Lethbridge. We have over 11,000 people in our group on Facebook, which is awesome, but a lot of them are from Lethbridge. Then I think Calgary would be the next, because we can see where people are from. Then Vancouver, I think Saskatchewan has a few, but I think mostly it's been Alberta, BC.
Right. Yeah. Now, what are you, besides wanting Marshall back, what are you hoping to see happen? What do you want the public to do? What can we do to help you?
Basically, it's just getting the word out there. Like, we've still had, up until a few weeks ago, even people in Lethbridge that had no idea, right? We think we're reaching a lot of people, but then there's always people that didn't even hear about it. So it's just getting the word out there that's the hugest struggle.
Right.
Yeah.
And I've been following the Facebook page, and I've seen posts about how people will go and put up missing posters, and then they'll go back and it's been taken down by maybe the store owner or something.
So don't take the posters down. Yes, I think people assume he's been found by now, and so we just spent so much time asking people to jog their memories, and now it's kind of scary because it's been so long. Like, unless there was something weird that you've seen, you wouldn't remember the person you were getting gas next to 3 months ago, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And have you guys tried to go back to BC and kind of retrace any? I know there's probably a dozen different ways to get to Pemberton, right?
Pemberton, yes, there is.
Yeah.
And that was the one thing if we could even we didn't find one piece of security footage, which is so insane in this day and age. Like, I can't believe that he made it there, or the truck made it there without being seen. So if we could just find one piece of footage that showed even him driving there, like, was it even him that took the truck there? Was he alone? Those are huge questions that we don't have the answers to.
Gosh, what a mystery. And Paige, his sister, has since gone back to the apartment he had in Calgary, and there wasn't any
It's been, we had to clean it out, right? We did pay for December's rent, and then and then January, we paid that as well. That was hard, like, knowing, like, do we clean it out? Because you're just hoping that you don't have to do that. That makes it so official, but we did, and nothing. There's nothing weird, nothing out of place.
How is the family coping? How is everyone getting through this?
It's been definitely hard. Like, we still talk about Marshall all the time. We still have the conference calls. Like, I think there's 8 of us often that will just talk, and I think just because we are so close, that makes it easier for everybody, right? Like, we have a lot of support, so thank goodness for that, right? So, but it's hard, especially not knowing. Like, that's the hardest thing, is not knowing what happened, and your mind just goes crazy, like, all the time, just thinking, well, what if this happened? But then this doesn't make sense, and this doesn't make sense, right? And
probably 1,000 different scenarios.
Right, yes. So that's just, we just want answers. Ultimately, we want him home, but we just need answers.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just answers you're just not getting. And has it been sometimes frustrating? Like, people will have you gotten any tips that maybe ended up not?
Oh, we've gotten lots of tips.
Yeah.
Like lots of people who think they've seen him, but nothing. And the police say that they've looked into all of them, but nothing has been confirmed sightings or anything.
And it was initially RCMP in BC, right? Pemberton
Right, and then
area?
it went to Calgary Police,
Okay.
and then it went to Lethbridge.
Okay.
Yes.
It's frustrating. I can feel it. I can feel
Yes.
the frustration with it all.
Yes, and it's so far. Like that's the thing is, we don't know exactly what happened and where it happened. Like the distance between us is so far.
Is that like about a 10 hours or so?
Yeah, the
9 or
route
10
we
hours?
probably think he would have taken to get there is about 14.
Oh gosh.
Yes,
Yeah.
and that's like mountains and right, like it's, So, but that's where it was really frustrating is that not one gas station. He had to have stopped for gas. We think at least 2 to 3 times in his truck, and like that, not one, nothing caught it.
Cassie Iwasa, thank you so much for joining me in the studio today and talking about this. It's very difficult for you and your family, I understand that, but it's also so important to get the word out.
Yeah.
So
Thank
join
you.
that Facebook page. It's Find Marshall Iwasa
Yes.
on Facebook.
Yes.
And pay attention to the posts and keep your eyes and ears open. And that's all we can really do for now until we have any more leads or information.
Yes.
Thank you so much,
Okay,
Cassie.
thank you.
We'll have more on BCN.
Oil has fallen below $50 US a barrel. The UCP was banking on it being over $50 when they put together the recent budget. How will this really impact our economy here in Alberta? To talk more about it is the Alberta correspondent with the National Post, Tyler Dawson. Tyler, the Kenney government is pretty confident that oil will rebound, but analysts are not so sure.
Yeah, that's right. They've got some pretty optimistic projections in the budget. So this came out a week ago, and there were not a great many surprises in the budget. The one thing that did surprise reporters was some of these estimates on what's going to happen in the next few years, and there's a couple of them we can talk about. The one that you mentioned is oil prices, and on Wednesday, oil prices were about $47 per barrel. Now, in order for the Kenney government to sort of see the revenues it's expecting over the next few years, it's projecting that oil is going to be more like $58 a barrel in the next couple years, climbing to $63 a barrel by 2023. This is almost everyone says this is a pretty optimistic assessment. We grilled the finance minister about it. He said that he's confident and he thinks that their projections are cautious. But that was a pretty big surprise to see their projections, and maybe they're trying to calm some of the jitters in the economy by saying, "Oh, look, good things are coming, good things are coming." But it was a very interesting. I don't think anyone expected to see those numbers in the budget last week.
Many people are suggesting that it'll be a miracle, Tyler, if we see $60 US a barrel again. So what happens if we don't quite reach that price? Will we see more potential cuts?
Yeah, so that's something that the Kenney government has been telegraphing in the past week. Finance Minister Travis Taves said it on Budget Day. Jason Kenney has been doing the rounds this week saying that as well. Basically, the gist of it being, if we don't get pipeline access, we don't get oil prices back up, if the economy doesn't start turning around, then there is the potential for further, they say spending restraint, of course, is how they're phrasing it. But, basically that means cuts. So you have this interesting scenario where if things don't get better, there might be more cuts, and they're also hoping for perhaps these optimistic changes in the economy over the next couple of years.
The province recently introduced some new taxes, including those on vaping and Airbnb. There's also a property tax hike coming in the neighborhood of around 3% as municipalities try and make up for a shortfall of funding.
That's right. Yeah. So, there have been a few little taxes here and there. There was an interesting development last week where after the budget came out, the Canadian Taxpayers Federation actually took a shot at the Kenney government because, of course, they've de-indexed income taxes. So the Taxpayer Federation calls this bracket creep because people are getting smaller exemptions each year. And so now there's also a 20% tax on vaping. That's both the fluids and the e-cigarette devices themselves. The Airbnb tax basically just extends taxes that are on other parts of the tourism industry, such as hotels, to Airbnb rentals. So, none of these I don't think are colossal hits to any household or family's bottom line, but they are some of the ways that the Kenney government is looking to make up a little bit of its revenue sort of shortfalls, shall we say.
Tyler, 164 provincial campgrounds and parks will be turned over to third parties to manage, plus 9 recreation areas will be closed and 11 parks will be partially closed, all in an effort, to save more money?
Yeah, and that number might surprise some. That number is $5 million is what the UCP is looking to save through these various changes. And they're sort of all over the province. There's going to be a complete closure in northern Alberta. Near Brooks, I believe we're seeing a partial closure. And so the idea is that there's going to be partnerships with some of these, where instead of the government managing campgrounds, managing these parks, they might be able to turn it over to recreation groups, community groups, things like that. We do already see a little bit of that out in sort of the Bighorn area outside of Rocky Mountain House. And I think the vision is that the government can just not spend this money and other people might step up to do it. And it's about 16,000 hectares across the province. Now, the government says these change. Yeah, so it's a lot. It's a lot of space. But the government says this is actually only about 1%, less than 1%, I should say, of Alberta's public lands. Now, that's unclear if that includes national parks as well as sort of provincial lands. But people are peeved. You look at the cross-country ski community in Calgary was out on Wednesday and Tuesday complaining about it. So, this is one of those small changes, small bits of money. I think that's the difficulty this government's facing with some of its cuts is you run the risk of irritating the people that have a lot of time and resources to complain about these things. And I suspect that in large part, some of the communities affected by this are those people.
A new Angus Reid poll says Jason Kenney's popularity has actually slipped below 50%. But Tyler, last time I checked, around 50 points is not that bad for a politician.
No, isn't that the truth, eh? If we were down around 30 or 20, or I think Kathleen Wynne, when she was Premier of Ontario, was in like low double digits, maybe approaching single digits. So you're certainly right about that. Kenney and the UCP have been on sort of a slow slide over the past several months in the polling. This is a drop of about 7 percentage points, I think it was, since December. Early days, of course, still, we're not even at a year yet with this government. So certainly popularity is sliding. I think that people are, like what we just discussed with the parks, people starting to see and feel perhaps some of the cuts. The opposition has, I think, in the last couple months really wound itself into gear. So I think all of those things are probably taking a little bit of toll on his popularity, but we're a long way from the next election, so I can't imagine Kenney or any of his staff are really fretting all that much about polling less than a year into their mandate.
But what you're telling me maybe that the honeymoon is over?
Well, perhaps it is, yeah. I think that Jason Kenney promised a lot in the last election, and has been struggling a little bit, I would say, to frame the government's cuts as, moderate and small and not really as draconian as the NDP is making them out to be. So, and for how long were people willing to sort of listen to that or take that at face value, I think is an excellent question. So, but again, I think the honeymoon could come back if all of a sudden there's a big change. So much of his premiership right now, I think, is frankly beyond his control.
Tyler, the government is giving $250,000 to a memorial fund for the victims of the Ukrainian plane that was shot down in Iran.
Yeah, so viewers will certainly remember that news. 57 Canadians killed, 15 of them were from Alberta, and a decent chunk of those were from the University of Alberta. So there's basically a memorial scholarship fund that's been set up at the university, and the government announced this week that it would be contributing $250,000 to this memorial fund / scholarship to sort of keep the memory alive of the Edmontonians, the Albertans, the Canadians who were killed in that tragedy.
Education changes are now in a bill. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, Bill 5, I think it is. So we're starting to see some of the legislation come out that's going to implement some of the changes that you and I have discussed, that people have read about over the past several weeks, several months. So what this bill does is it has mainly there was a post-secondary education change. They're aiming for outcomes-based funding. So this bill is going to put that sort of structure into place. There's also another provision in there where if a school board wants to spend its reserve fund, it needs to run that by the provincial government first. So there has been, that little piece is a bit of a larger trend with the provincial government right now, where they're trying to get sort of lower bodies of government to clear some of this stuff with the province first. We saw some of that last year when they were discussing, trying to prevent municipalities basically from signing agreements and funding arrangements and whatnot with the federal government. and instead saying they had to come through the province. So, that's just a little, those are, not massive changes in this bill, but, we're starting to see the legislative side of the political agenda start to come together.
The Fair Deal panel has a survey where they're asking people if they support separation. That's pretty scary.
Yeah, a weird thing. And curse them, the Globe and Mail saw it before I did. But that's right. So the Fair Deal panel, as everyone knows, has been going around, and they've wrapped now, going around collecting people's thoughts on how to get a better deal for Alberta within Confederation. And so they have a survey, and on that survey it asks about separation. Now, the panel said, well, look, we heard a lot about separation when we were out doing this panel. This isn't something we can ignore. Now, they've said basically that they don't intend to recommend separation or recommend a referendum on independence of some sort, but it's included in there as part of, they've heard of it, they have to consider it, it has to go into the report in some capacity. So that's how they're explaining it. But it's just an interesting little twist in this phenomenon that just doesn't seem to go away.
So Jason Kenney brought up maybe at the Ledge, anything more that Alberta can do to kind of put the pressure on Ottawa to give Alberta more of a fair deal?
That is a good question. Well, he has talked a little bit in recent days and weeks about the carbon tax case and what he would do if they lost that. So, he still, for example, has the equalization referendum that he wants to hold on the table. And in addition to that sort of stick portion of this, he also, when I talked to him last week, was mentioning how there might be some other sort of carbon pricing arrangement the province could enter into that would be more of a carrot in this situation, whether it's some sort of cap and trade arrangement is what he suggested. Not necessarily with Quebec and whatever their cap is, but so I think he's got these ideas, carrot and stick, that he's still sort of sitting on down the road.
Tyler, the province is giving a $100 million loan to combat orphan wells. How many wells are we talking about here?
Yeah, so this $100 million should help clean up about 1,000 wells, and it'll start the process on sort of assessing the cleanup on about 1,000 more. And now there is about 3,400 orphan wells in Alberta. So yeah, so this is a bit of a problem, and it's causing disagreements between environmentalists and landowners and energy companies in the province, and municipalities are in on this. It's a whole mess. So this $100 million is supposed to create about 500 jobs, the province says, and sort of get this process underway. So on one hand, it is an environmental policy to help clean up these orphan wells, and it's also a little bit of a FDR New Deal style kick in the pants for the economy to try and get some people to work.
Let me ask you something. When you're at the legislature, you're listening to Kenny and Notley go back and forth, and Kenny admits the fact that we shouldn't rely as heavily on the energy sector, the oil and gas industry, especially over the next 20 or 30 years. Has he talked more about potentially investing more into agriculture, green technology? Where are we going to be investing a lot of our money as a province?
Yeah, you're right. There was a whole little section in the budget, and the precise details escape me, but that talked about diversification of the Alberta economy. And this government is big on the diversification side of things. Now, I think where you would see the difference is perhaps on how they hope to achieve that. Of course, Rachel Notley's government had various programs for, say, craft breweries to start up and things like that, which has led to this, lovely expansion of the craft beer industry in Alberta. And Kenny's government, I think, is still sort of hoping that this corporate tax cut they brought in a few months back, that's going to continue to go down. That's going to bring in some of this diversification and change. So I think, it's sort of very fundamentally, that's where you see the philosophical difference between the two, and that may or may not pan out in sort of the short to medium term, I would say.
Our legislative reporter and Alberta correspondent with the National Post, Tyler Dawson, thanks again for joining me today from Edmonton.
Thanks, Hal.
On behalf of all of us here at BCN, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless, and thanks so much for watching.